Very warm good morning to my dear children. So, are you guys interested in learning a new poem? So, today we are going to learn a new poem from a railway carriage written by Robert Louis Stevenson. Do you like traveling? Yes, we all like traveling, isn't it? So, what kind of traveling do you like? There are various kinds of transportations like bus, car, ship, plane, train, etc. So, which mode of transportation do you like? I think most of us like to travel in train, right? So, traveling experiences are a source of happiness because we all like to travel. So, uh, our traveling experience altogether they combine a happy experience, right? For everyone, because everyone likes to travel. So, for everyone, especially for children, they all like to travel. So, in our childhood days, we all had a fascination with traveling, right? Especially I think most of us like to travel in train because of its length. Most of us likes to travel in train because of its what length, the sound produced by the mechanical movement of the wheels, the loud horn, etc. So most of us are too much what kind of very kind of curious to travel in train, right? So, in this poem, From a Railway Carriage by RL Stevenson, this poem altogether it describes his thrilling journey on a train. His means our poet itself, that is Robert Louis Stevenson. So, our poet describes his thrilling journey on a train and the sights he saw there. So, the poem talks about the train ride, and the poet is in a railway carriage. As the very title mentions, the poet is in a railway carriage and describes a thing he observes during his ride. He sees all the things very briefly because we all know how fast a train is, isn't it? Because a train is very fast, it just flashes in a minute. So the poet sees all the things very briefly. So we can relate to the point because we all have experienced these kind of journeys, isn't it? We all have experienced a train journey. Most of us, I think everyone have experienced a train journey, right? So we all know that the train flashes within a minute, so that we can't see clearly what all are the things that are seen outside like that. So the whole poem is divided into four stanzas, and the rhyme scheme of each stanza is A, B, C, B, D, E, F, E. So now we can move on to the poem. From a Railway Carriage was published in RL Stevenson's volume of poetry for children named A Child's Garden of Verses, and from the title itself, the poem captures the essence of the poem. That is, from the very title itself, we get to know that what the poem is all about. So, this poem communicates the poet's observation and thoughts as he was sitting in a railway carriage. So, before moving on to the poem, we can look at the life of our poet. So, who is our poet? Yeah, Robert Louis Stevenson. Okay, Robert Louis Stevenson. He was born on 13th November 1850. He was born at 8th Howard Place, Edinburgh, Scotland. And being born in Scotland, he was a Scottish writer, poet, essayist, and travel writer. He is a very known Scottish writer. His famous works are Treasure Island, Kidnapped, Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And he died on December 3rd, 1894, at a very young age, I think about 40 years old. He died out of that. So now we can move on to the poem. From a Railway Carriage by Robert Louis Stevenson. Now listen to the poem. poem is divided into stanza wise. Faster than fairies, faster than witches, bridges and houses, hedges and ditches, and charging along like troops in a battle. All through the meadows, the horses and cattle, all the sides of the hill and the plain, fly as thick as driving rain. And ever again, in the wink of an eye, painted stations whistle by. Here is a child who clambers and scrambles all by himself and gathering brambles. Here is a tramp who stands and gazes, and there is a green for stringing the daisies. Here is a cart run away in the road, lumbering along with man and load. And here is a mill, and there is a river, each a glimpse and gone forever. So, that's the poem. Now we can experience our train journey with Robert Louis Stevenson. Are you ready? Okay. Now we can look on to the meaning of the first stanza. Here the poet describes the experience while traveling on a train. He says that the train moves faster than the mythical creatures like fairies, very faster than fairies, and witches. So the train moves very faster than fairies and both witches. The train rushes past bridges and houses. Both bridges and houses, the train is rushing over them. Then the train rushes over hedges and ditches. Then the train moves all through the meadows, the horses and cattle charge along like troops in a battlefield. The cattle are charging along like troops in a battlefield, just like soldiers. The poet talks about the scenery and the creatures that he sees through the windows. Actually, through these descriptions, through hedges, ditches, cattle, horses, the poet is actually conveying us about the scenery and the creatures that he sees through the window. All the sides of hill and plain fly as thick as driving rain. Because while the train is moving very fastly, a passenger that is sitting by the window side is able to see the sides of the hill and plain very briefly. It just flashes in a minute, and it is flying as thick in driving rain. The train is so fast, and that it makes everything outside look like raining. The poet is seeing everything outside the train just looking like raining, because it's very fast, and within a wink of eye everything is pass away. So the poet feels like everything outside is looking like rainy. And in the wink of an eye, painted stations whistle by. The train goes past colorful stations very quickly. The train is very, very, very fastly moving. So that is all about the first two stanza. In the first stanza, the poet is mentioning is about the fastness of the train. Right. Now we can move on to the next stanza. Okay. Here is a child who clambers and scrambles, all by himself and gathering brambles. Here is a tramp who stands and gazes, and there is a green for stringing the daisies. Here is a cart run away in the road, lumping along with man and load, and here is a mill and there's a river, each a glimpse and gone forever. Now, through this stanza, the poet describes the scenes he sees outside the train. Just similar to the earlier stanza, the poet is describing about the scenes he sees outside the train. And here the poet is mentioning as about a child who clambers and scrambles all by himself is gathering some brambles. A child who is moving awkwardly all by himself, and he's trying to get something. He's searching something in between the shrubs. A kind of searching is done. Here is a tramp who stands and gazes. A tramp means A tram person, a passerby person is standing and gazing somewhere. And some people are stringing daisies into garlands in a green meadow. The poet is mentioning is about the various scenes he sees outside the train. He also sees a cart that is lumping along the road with man and load. Here is a cart run away on the road, lumping along with man and load. Both man and load is being carried out by a cart. He also mentions about that scene. He also sees a mill and a river, and one catches a glimpse of every one of these things, and then they are gone forever. So, by the end, he sees a mill and there is a water. He sees a mill and a water, each a glimpse and gone forever. Everything he is seen just as a glimpse. Within a flash of second, everything is gone. Just everything is just rushing out because of the speed of the train, and each a glimpse and everything is gone forever. Just as a glimpse he can see everything, and the next second everything is gone forever. So that's all about the poem. So as a whole, the poet is mentioning us about everything he had seen within that train journey. The poet can only see everything for a tiny second because of the speed of the train. Train journey is actually a very wonderful thing, as we all know. The speed of the train seems like everything is rushing past in, and we can catch a glimpse of every very distant things and activities. So when we look from a railway carriage, we are just seeing a glimpse of everything. So overall, this poem is a very beautiful poem which we could relate, isn't it? The joy we get from traveling is one of the so from the very two stanzas we get to know, the readers get to know that the joy that we get from traveling is a major theme of the poem, and also the beauty of nature is also another theme of the poem. The poet mentions it very well through the descriptions like meadows, the horses, the cattle, sides of the hill, plain, etc. Then Robert Louis Stevenson has written a very beautiful poem mentioning us about a traveling experience he had with the train, and he also used several poetic devices like simile, assonance, and alliteration within the poem. Now we can look into the glossary of the poem. Glossary. We mentioned about the hedges, right? Hedges are a fence or boundary formed by closely growing bushes or shrubs. Then ditches. Ditches are a narrow channel dug at the side of a road or field to hold or carry away water. Meadows, as we know, a piece of grassland, especially one used for hay. Clambers means we mentioned about the child, right? Clambers climb or move in an awkward and laborious way, typically using both hands and feet. Then scrambles, meaning a difficult or hurried clamber up or over something. Brambles means a prickling, scrambling shrub of the rose family, especially blackberry. Tramp means a person who travels from place to place in search of work or as a vagrant or beggar. Lump means carry somewhere with very difficulty. So it was a very beautiful poem, and it was a very simple poem where our narrator or the poet Robert Louis Stevenson is mentioning us about a railway carriage, about the experience he had with the railway carriage, how he enjoyed the railway journey, etc. Such kind of things are very much noted in throughout the poem. So as a whole, we can summarize the poem as: the poem From a Railway Carriage is about the experience of the poet RL Stevenson during his train travel. He has written the poem very expressively. Very expressively, he has written the poem, as we all know, that we also travel along with them. I think we also feel like a kind of traveling along with him, isn't it? Because the descriptions are so very well written, and we also feel like we are also traveling with the poet in his railway carriage. Says that the train traveled much faster than imaginary characters like fairies and witches. He saw bridges, houses, hedges, and ditches along the way. He felt the train charged forward like troops of soldiers in a battlefield who were ready to attack. He sees many brightly painted stations along the way, and he heard the whistles that indicated the arrival of the stations. But all these sights flew past him in a wink of an eye because the train was speeding fast. The poet saw a child scrambling up brambles to gather some blackberry fruits. He also saw a tramp who was standing and gazing at the things happening around him. Some people were stringing daisies to make garlands from it. He saw a cart that was lumping along laboriously with weight of man and the cartload. Finally, he saw a mill and a river. The poet saw all these sights only in a glimpse. The very important word is only in a glimpse, as the train sped away, because the train is very speedy moving. So the poet is able to see the sights only in a glimpse. Within a flash of a second, everything goes by, leaving the images behind them. So he gets to know, see a glimpse, and the images are gone forever. So that's all about the poem. I hope you all have understood the poem. Thank you.